The Galactic Council had made their decision. After 3 cycles of debate, they would finally test these peculiar beings called humans in a controlled environment. Not to harm them, the Council prided itself on ethical research, but to understand them. Humans were an anomaly. Their planet, designated Terra 3, registered as a Class 12 Deathworld. The Council's classification system only went to 10. Impossible readings, Vexthor, the lead xenobiologist, had declared when the initial surveys came back. Atmospheric oxygen levels that would cause cellular degradation in most species. Gravity that should crush undeveloped spines. Microorganisms everywhere, trillions of them, living on every surface, even inside the humans themselves. Yet humans thrived. They lived in these conditions for their entire developmental cycle, breathing poison, carrying diseases that would devastate other worlds, withstanding gravitational forces that required galactic species to wear powered exoskeletons just to visit. The Council wanted to know, was it the world that made them or something inherent to the species? Thus, the experiment was designed. They would place a group of humans on Sanctuary 7, a Class 0 world, the safest classification possible. Perfectly balanced atmosphere, gentle gravity at 0.6 standard, no predators, abundant food sources, and a stable, temperate climate year-round. Every species the Council had tested there had thrived beyond expectations. They selected 12 humans, various ages, backgrounds, and genetic profiles. The humans were informed, compensated generously, and volunteered enthusiastically. Most seemed excited about the adventure, which itself puzzled the researchers. Why would anyone be eager to leave their home? Dr. Marcus Webb, a biologist from Earth, stood in the transport bay with his daughter Emma, a botanist. Beside them were engineers, teachers, a chef, a musician, and others, a cross-section of human society. Remember, Vexthor addressed them through the translator, Sanctuary 7 has everything you need. Simply exist there as you would naturally. We will observe from orbit and check in periodically. Emergency extraction is available if requested. The humans nodded, several smiling at each other. One question, Marcus raised his hand. What do you expect to happen? Vexthor's facial tendrils rippled, confusion. You will live comfortably. This world has sustained 47 species in similar studies. All showed increased health markers, longer lifespans, and greater reproduction rates. So we just exist? Emma asked. For how long? 1 standard cycle. Approximately 1.3 of your Earth years. The humans exchanged glances. Some shrugged. One laughed. Sounds like a vacation, someone muttered. The transport departed 3 hours later, leaving the Council researchers in the observation station. They settled in, expecting a straightforward study. Humans would acclimate to the paradise world, thrive in the absence of their planet's constant threats, and provide valuable data on adaptive biology. They were documenting the first week when things began to deviate from projections. It started small, so small that initially, no one noticed the warnings. The problems began on day 4. Vexthor reviewed the biometric data with growing confusion. Their cortisol levels are rising, but there are no stressors present. His assistant, Krila, checked the environmental monitors. Atmospheric composition perfect. Temperature optimal. No threats detected. The humans have established shelters using provided materials. Food synthesizers are functioning. What could possibly? Look at Subject 7, Vexthor interrupted, zooming in on the video feed. Marcus Webb sat outside his shelter, staring at the horizon. He'd been there for 2 hours, barely moving. His daughter Emma approached. Dad? You okay? It's too quiet, Marcus said. Too perfect. Isn't that good? Maybe. He stood, stretching. I'm going for a run. The terrain is completely flat for kilometers, Emma pointed out. There's nowhere to run to. I know. I just need something. Over the next week, the pattern repeated across all 12 subjects. Restlessness. Agitation. Several humans had taken to creating arbitrary challenges, running until exhausted, building elaborate structures that serve no purpose, even deliberately restricting their own food intake as some form of self-imposed limitation. They're self-destructing, Krila observed. But why? Subject 3, an engineer named James Rodriguez, had disassembled half the settlement's power system, then rebuilt it, more efficiently, despite it functioning perfectly. Subject 9, teacher Lisa Thompson, had begun creating complex lesson plans despite having no students. On day 12, Marcus approached the communication beacon. Vexthor? You monitoring? Always, Dr. Webb. How can we assist? We need projects. Work. Something to do besides exist. Vexthor's tendrils nodded. But, the purpose is to observe your species in a stress-free environment. Adding labor would contaminate the data. Marcus laughed, a sound that translated poorly through the device. We're humans. We don't do stress-free. We need purpose, challenge, obstacles to overcome. This paradise of yours is driving us insane. Insane? Your neural patterns show no degradation. Not that kind of insane. Look, humans evolved solving problems. Constantly. Our entire history is overcoming the next threat, the next challenge, the next limitation. You've put us in a place with no problems, and our brains are compensating. Vexthor consulted his data. It was true, human neurology showed unusual patterns. Their threat assessment centers remained active despite no threats. Their problem-solving cortexes fired continuously, searching for non-existent problems to solve. What do you suggest? Vexthor asked carefully. Let us work. We brought tools, skills, and knowledge. Let us use them. Otherwise. Marcus glanced back at the settlement, where Emma was arguing with James about architectural inefficiencies in a perfectly functional building. Otherwise, we're going to create our own problems just to have something to fix. I must consult the council. Do it fast, Marcus said. We're only 12 days in. Vexthor disconnected, deeply troubled. The humans weren't thriving, they were deteriorating. But not physically. Mentally, they were suffering from the absence of adversity itself. It made no sense. The council granted permission for limited engagement activities, though Vexthor could sense their skepticism. No species needed hardship to function. It was illogical. Within 3 days of approval, Sanctuary 7 was transformed. The humans had descended on the landscape like a force of nature. James had designed an irrigation system, unnecessary, given the regular rainfall, but it allowed them to redirect water for what Emma called a proper garden. She'd rejected the food synthesizers and planted seeds brought from Earth. Why grow food when synthesis is more efficient? Krila asked during an observation review. They claim it tastes better, Vexthor replied, equally baffled. Chemical analysis shows identical nutritional content. Marcus had organized the group into specialized teams. Lisa was developing an education program, in case we stay longer or others join. The chef, Anton Petrov, was experimenting with local edible plants, despite having unlimited synthesized meals. But it was Subject 11 who concerned Vexthor most. David Kim, listed as a wilderness guide, had ventured into the forest alone. Not fleeing, the trackers showed he returned each night, but exploring. Mapping. Testing the environment's limits. On day 28, David triggered every alarm in the observation station. He's climbing the cliff face. Krila shrieked. At the boundary of the safe zone. Vexthor activated the communicator. David Kim. You are approaching dangerous terrain. Please return to. It's fine. David's voice crackled back, breathless but excited. Just needed to see what's up here. The view must be incredible. The cliff is 60 meters high. The safety protocols. I've climbed worse on Earth. This is easy mode, the gravity's lower, the rock is stable, and there's no wind. Vexthor watched in horror as David scaled the cliff with disturbing efficiency. At the top, David stood, arms raised, laughing. Now this is what I'm talking about, he shouted. Hey, there's a whole valley on the other side. Can we explore it? Absolutely not. That region hasn't been cleared for. But David was already describing the terrain to the others via his personal communicator. Within an hour, 5 more humans had climbed the cliff. They're seeking danger, Krila whispered. They're literally searching for ways to risk their lives on a Class 0 world. The council emergency meeting was tense. Perhaps we miscategorized them, one member suggested. If they require risk stimulation, they may be a predator species with unusual psychology. They're not predators, Vexthor argued. They're omnivores with complex social structures. But they are addicted to challenge. Observe, he pulled up footage of Emma's garden. She could use synthesizers. Instead, she manually plants, weeds, and tends crops. The inefficiency is the point. Fascinating, another council member murmured. They derive satisfaction from overcoming unnecessary obstacles. Not unnecessary to them, Vexthor corrected. I believe the obstacles are psychologically essential. Their species evolved on a Class 12 Deathworld. Every generation faced extinction-level challenges. It's imprinted on their psychology. So what do we do? We watch, Vexthor decided. And we prepare to intervene if they create genuine danger. He had no idea how prescient that concern would be. By week 8, the settlement had doubled in size and tripled in complexity. What began as simple shelters had evolved into an intricate village. James had engineered a water wheel, purely mechanical, powered by the redirected stream, that served no purpose except to prove it could be done. Anton had constructed a kiln and was experimenting with pottery from local clay. They're regressing technologically, one council observer noted. Using primitive methods when advanced tools are available. No, Vexthor corrected, studying the data. They're exploring. Testing principles. Look, he highlighted Marcus's notes. He's documenting which local materials can substitute for Earth resources. They're learning the planet. Emma's garden had become a full agricultural project. She'd catalogued 47 native plant species, cross-referencing their properties with Earth biology. 3 showed promise as food sources. 2 had medicinal properties that intrigued her. Why do they need medicine on a Class 0 world? Krila asked. The answer came 2 days later. David had organized what he called an expedition into the forest beyond the cliff. 8 humans participated, leaving 4 to maintain the settlement. They carried supplies, mapping equipment, and genuine excitement. There's nothing dangerous out there, Vexthor assured his team. Sanctuary 7 has no large predators, no toxic plants, no hostile conditions. They'll hike, observe, and return. But humans, he was learning, had a unique talent for finding complexity in simplicity. On day 3 of their expedition, Marcus contacted base. Vexthor, we found something interesting. A cave system. Extensive. Can we explore it? Caves weren't mapped in the safe zone, Vexthor replied, checking the charts. But they should be structurally sound. The planet is geologically stable. Perfect. We're going in. What Vexthor didn't anticipate was the human definition of exploration. They descended 300 meters into the cave system, mapping as they went. They discovered underground streams, unusual mineral formations, and a species of bioluminescent fungi that fascinated Emma. Sample collection proceeding, Marcus reported. This fungus could have applications in low-light agriculture. Also, it's beautiful. Lisa's sketching it. You have cameras, Vexthor pointed out. Not the same, Lisa's voice chimed in. Art captures essence, not just image. The expedition lasted 6 days. They emerged exhausted, filthy, and jubilant. Best week since we arrived, David declared, covered in mud and grinning. We should do this monthly. The council was baffled. They voluntarily subjected themselves to darkness, cold, and difficult terrain. They considered this recreation. Humans have a term, Vexthor explained, consulting his cultural database. Adventure. They actively seek experiences that challenge them, even when unnecessary for survival. The difficulty itself provides psychological reward. This species is deeply irrational. Or, Vexthor suggested quietly, they're adapted to a world where constant challenge is rational. Where complacency means death. The implications troubled him. If humans required adversity to thrive, what would they do when they inevitably ran out of challenges on Sanctuary 7? He got his answer sooner than expected. On day 73, James presented a proposal. We want to build a bridge, he announced via communicator. Across the canyon on the eastern boundary. There are 3 alternative routes that avoid the canyon entirely, Vexthor replied. I know. But the bridge would be more direct. Also, it'd be incredible engineering practice. We've got ideas for suspension design using local materials. This is unnecessary risk for no practical benefit. James smiled, that peculiar human expression that could mean so many things. Exactly. That's the point. The bridge project consumed the settlement for weeks. Vexthor watched, simultaneously fascinated and alarmed, as the humans threw themselves into the endeavor. They'd identified a canyon crossing, 50 meters wide, 30 meters deep, that separated their settlement from a forested region they wanted to explore. They could walk around it in an hour, Krila observed. Why build a bridge? Because it's there, Marcus had explained when asked. Because we can. Because the challenge of engineering it with limited resources is intellectually stimulating. The humans formed teams. James led structural design, calculating load requirements and stress points with remarkable precision considering their limited tools. David scouted anchor points and tested rock stability. Emma researched plant fibers for rope making, discovering a local vine with exceptional tensile strength. Anton, the chef, became their de facto chemist, experimenting with natural adhesives from tree resins. Lisa documented everything, creating detailed plans for future generations or other settlements. The remaining team members quarried stone, processed wood, and manufactured components. Vexthor noticed something unexpected, they were happy. Not content, happiness and contentment, he'd learned, were different for humans, but genuinely engaged. Their stress markers had normalized. Sleep patterns improved. Social cohesion strengthened. The work itself is therapeutic, he reported to the council. They don't merely tolerate challenge, they require it for psychological health. Then they are fundamentally incompatible with civilized society, a council member declared. We have eliminated such hardships. Our citizens live in comfort and security. Perhaps that's why humanity is different, Vexthor suggested. They evolved differently. Their death world made them need struggle the way we need oxygen. The bridge took 42 days to complete. It was, objectively, a magnificent structure, a suspension bridge with stone towers and woven cable, spanning the canyon with graceful efficiency. Completely unnecessary. Absolutely beautiful. The humans celebrated its completion with what they called a party, communal gathering with music, food, and something Marcus called probably terrible homemade alcohol that made them laugh more than seemed medically advisable. Speech, someone called when Marcus stood. He raised a clay cup of the dubious beverage. To the most pointless bridge in the galaxy. Cheers erupted. No, seriously, Marcus continued, smiling. This bridge goes nowhere urgent. Saves us maybe an hour of walking. Took 6 weeks to build. By any rational measure, it's absurd. Here's to absurdity. David shouted. But, Marcus said, his voice growing thoughtful, it's also proof. Proof that we can take what's given, what's available, and make something more. Not because we had to. Because we chose to. That's what makes us human, the choice to create challenges, to build monuments to our own stubborn refusal to simply exist. He paused. Vexthor, you watching? Always, Vexthor replied through the communicator. You brought us to paradise and wondered if we'd thrive. Truth is, we're not built for paradise. We're built for the climb. And when there's no mountain, we'll build our own, brick by brick, just to have something to summit. The humans cheered again, and Vexthor felt something shift in his understanding. They weren't broken. They weren't malfunctioning. They were simply human. A species forged in fire, carrying that forge within them. The question was, what would they do when they ran out of mountains to build? The answer came during week 16. Emma approached the communicator with an unusual request. Vexthor, we'd like to introduce some challenges to the environment. I'm sorry, what? Nothing dangerous. But we've been thinking, this world is too sterile. There are plants here, small animals, but no real ecosystem complexity. We'd like permission to introduce some biodiversity. From where? Emma smiled. We'll create it. Absolutely not, the council declared. They want to engineer organisms on a pristine Class 0 world? Unthinkable. Vexthor had expected this reaction. They're not proposing anything dangerous. Review their plan, it's remarkably sophisticated. The document Emma had submitted was indeed impressive. Detailed proposals for selective breeding programs using existing Sanctuary 7 species, creating beneficial ecological relationships without introducing invasive elements. They want to make the world harder for themselves, a council member said incredulously. They want to add complexity, unpredictability, challenge. This confirms they're psychologically damaged. Or evolved for different conditions, Vexthor countered. Consider, every successful species we've observed thrived on Sanctuary 7's simplicity. But humans are declining by certain metrics, reduced dopamine production, increased listlessness during rest periods. They need ecosystem complexity the way our species need simplicity. After lengthy debate, the council approved a limited trial. Minimal changes only. Complete monitoring. Any signs of danger, the project terminates immediately. The humans began what Emma called cooperative evolution. They started with pollinating insects, encouraging certain species that showed promise for plant diversity. They created habitat structures, logs, rock piles, dense plantings, that attracted different fauna. They introduced controlled variation in their agricultural plots, allowing some weeds to grow, creating competition. They're deliberately making their food production less efficient, Krila observed. Yes, Vexthor agreed. But observe their engagement levels. Marcus was working with Emma daily now, documenting ecosystem changes with scientific rigor. They discovered that increasing biodiversity led to unexpected interactions, better soil quality, natural pest control, new food sources. It's teaching us about the planet, Emma explained during a routine check-in. Sanctuary 7 looked simple, but it was just quiet. Waiting. Now we're learning its language. By week 20, a transformation was evident. The area around the settlement had become noticeably more vibrant, more colors, more sounds, more movement. The humans had created a patch of semi-controlled complexity within the sterile perfection. They're terraforming it, one observer noted. Making a Class 0 world more like their Deathworld. Not quite, Vexthor corrected. They're finding balance. They don't want danger, they want dynamism. Unpredictability. Life that challenges them to adapt. But the most remarkable change was in the humans themselves. David had started a tracking school, teaching others to read animal signs in the enriched environment. Anton was developing new recipes from the diversified ecosystem. Lisa was documenting everything, creating a natural history of the changing world. They're thriving, Vexthor reported. All health markers positive. Psychological assessments show significant improvement. They've found equilibrium. By rejecting the perfection we offered, a council member said sourly. By modifying it to match their needs, Vexthor replied. Isn't adaptation the mark of successful intelligence? The council had no response. As week 26 approached, halfway through the study, Vexthor reviewed all data. The humans had transformed their situation entirely. They'd taken a perfect world and made it imperfect, and in doing so, found contentment. But something nagged at him. The humans seemed satisfied now, but he'd observed their pattern: overcome challenge, seek new challenge, repeat. They'd optimized the settlement, built their bridge, enriched the ecosystem. What would they reach for next? Marcus answered during their next conversation, his tone casual but his words significant. Vexthor, we've been thinking. Once this year ends, what happens? We go home? That was the agreement. You fulfilled the study parameters admirably. Right, but we've built something here. A community, a developing ecosystem, a body of knowledge. Seems a shame to just abandon it. What are you suggesting? What if others came? What if Sanctuary 7 became not just an observation site, but a colony? Vexthor's tendrils stilled. You want to stay? Permanently? Some of us might. And others might want to try. Not everyone, humans need variety too. But this could be a model. A place where humans and the galaxy interact. Where we show you who we are, and learn who you are. The Council would never approve human colonization, Vexthor said, but his conviction wavered. Why not? We've proven we can thrive here, in our own way. We've made improvements, not damage. And... Marcus paused. Vexthor, you've spent 6 months watching us. You know we're not a threat. We're just different. The conversation troubled Vexthor long after it ended. Because Marcus was right. The final month of observation passed swiftly. The humans continued their projects, expanding the bridge network, diversifying crops, exploring distant territories. They'd settled into a rhythm, a balance between challenge and capability that seemed sustainable. Vexthor prepared his final report with unusual care. This wasn't just data, it was a revelation about an entire species. On day 364, he transmitted his conclusions to the Council. The human experiment on Sanctuary 7 has yielded unexpected but invaluable results. Initial hypothesis, that humans would thrive in a Class 0 environment, proved incorrect. However, a deeper truth emerged: humans require challenge as a fundamental psychological need, comparable to physical requirements like nutrition. Humans do not seek danger for its own sake, but rather seek engagement with complexity. They are a species that evolved solving endless cascading problems, and this evolutionary history shaped their neurology. Comfort without challenge produces deterioration. Challenge with support produces excellence. Most significantly, humans are adaptive engineers. When placed in an environment lacking sufficient complexity, they create it. They are, essentially, a species that carries their Deathworld's lessons internally and applies them externally. Recommendation: humans should not be classified by their world's danger level, but by their unique psychological profile. They are compatible with galactic civilization, but require accommodations, specifically, opportunities for meaningful challenge, creative problem-solving, and continuous growth. Furthermore, I propose Sanctuary 7 be redesignated as a joint research and cultural exchange site. The humans have expressed interest in remaining and welcoming others. This could serve as a bridge between human civilization and the wider galaxy, a place where our species learn from each other's differences rather than fearing them. The council debated for 3 days. Finally, Vexthor received their response: proposal approved. Limited human settlement authorized. Ongoing observation required. He descended to Sanctuary 7 personally to deliver the news. The 12 humans gathered in their central square, no longer simple shelters, but a thriving village with gardens, workshops, and that absurd magnificent bridge spanning the canyon. "You're permitted to stay," Vexthor announced. "And others may join you, under supervision." Sanctuary 7 is now a cultural exchange site. The humans erupted in celebration, but Marcus approached Vexthor quietly. "You understand now," Marcus said. "It wasn't a question." "I'm beginning to," Vexthor admitted. "Your species terrified us. A Deathworld species with advanced technology, expanding into space. We expected warriors, conquerors. We can be those things," Marcus acknowledged. "When we have to be. But mostly, we're just people trying to find purpose in an indifferent universe. We build, we create, we overcome, not to dominate, but to understand. To grow. Your planet made you this way. Our planet started it. But we chose to continue it. That's the real human trait, Vexthor, we always choose to keep climbing." Vexthor looked across the transformed settlement. In 6 months, these 12 humans had taken a perfect world and made it beautifully imperfect. They'd proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their tolerance for danger, but their intolerance for stagnation. "What will you do now?" he asked. "You've accomplished everything you set out to do here." Marcus smiled, that peculiar human expression that Vexthor had finally learned to read. It meant joy mixed with determination. Now we teach others what we've learned. We show your people that different doesn't mean dangerous. We build relationships, share knowledge, create something new together." He gestured at the village. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy has thousands of worlds, millions of challenges, infinite opportunities to grow. You want to help us? We want to grow with you. Challenge makes us human, Vexthor. But connection makes us whole. You gave us a paradise and watched us remake it. Now let's see what we can build together." As Vexthor returned to orbit, he reflected on the experiment's true outcome. They hadn't learned whether humans could survive without danger, they'd learned that humans carry their own kind of danger within them, the dangerous idea that everything can be improved, every challenge can be met, every obstacle is just an opportunity waiting to be recognized. The galaxy had sent humans to a Class 0 Deathworld expecting them to fail or stagnate. Instead, humanity had done what they always did, they'd adapted, overcome, and then invited everyone else to join them on the climb. Below, in the settlement, Emma planted new seeds in enriched soil, David mapped unexplored territories, and Anton perfected recipes from an ecosystem they'd helped create. The bridge stood against the sunset, a monument to humanity's beautiful, stubborn refusal to accept perfection when improvement was possible. The experiment was over. The collaboration had just begun.